Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Lena. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to talk about the best books that I've read this year. I managed to compile like a top 10. I do have to say that I have some honorable mentions. So we're going to start with that. This list is actually in order. So we're going to climb our way through the honorable mentions and then from 10 to the best book that I read this year. Which shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone by this point, but still. We'll make our way to number 1. So let's just start with the honorable mentions. So I have 3 honorable mentions. Like, there are books that were just like good, and I'm still thinking about them today, but they didn't feel as good as the other books in this list. So the first one that I have here is A Desolation Cold Peace by Akari Martin. This is the sequel to A Memory Called Empire, which I read last year and really liked. And this year I read A Desolation Cold Peace, which is such a worthy successor to the previous book. Like, it's just so good. I'm so invested in this relationship between the main characters. Like, it's so good. And we love, some politics. In the first one, we have our main character just trying to figure out how this empire works. But in this one, we actually have like a first contact with aliens thing. It was done so greatly. I love it. There's even like a reunion, like a first reunion. That part was amazing. I strongly suggest that you read A Memory Called Empire and then A Desolation Cold Peace. It's a great duology, science fiction, space opera. I love it. Then I have here The Monstrumologist by Rick Yancey. I had no idea that this is the author of the Fifth Wave, actually, which I haven't read. I have watched that movie. Not a huge fan of it. But I haven't read the Fifth Wave. But still, The Monstrumologist is such a different book from that one. Like, this is basically set in London. It's by the time of Jack the Ripper, and we have this figure called the Monstrumologist. He basically studies monsters, and it's so gory and so horror-y and so good. I don't understand how this is categorized as YA because it's even like, it's worse than some of the adult horror fantasy books that I've read. Like, it's darker and grittier. No idea what is categorized as YA. Like, I get it. The main character is young, but would you say this is a middle grade book? Like, no. Still, Monstrumologist is fantastic. I cannot wait to continue with this quartet. Like, it's just so good. Then, The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. Oh, this book. I have already gotten the sequel. I really need to read it next month if I have the time, or maybe I'll wait till the audiobook. But dude, The Mask of Mirrors is so good. If you like The Lies of Locke Lamora, you're going to love this. It had a similar feeling of like deceiving, and it's not just like about a heist of anything. It's super intriguing. Like, the court novel intrigue in this book on a whole nother level. And so many twists and deaths in the middle of it, and you're just like, wait, did they do this? Like, why? I love this. I strongly recommend this book to anyone who likes fantasy. It's pretty like condensed in this one city, so you won't feel very lost. But yeah, the scope of everything is great. This book is amazing. I highly recommend it. I feel like it's actually pretty underrated. Most of my friends have read it, but I feel like outside of my like SFF booktube bubble, this is not that like well treated, and this is fantastic. Highly recommend this one. Let's just get started with the top 10. In number 10, we have The Maleficent Seven by Cameron Jensen. Hear me out. I didn't give this book 5 stars. But I still haven't stopped thinking about this book since I read it, because it was such a good time. Like, I want more. It's a book that I will reread and still be happy about it. Like, oof, it was so good for me. Like, it felt right. It's basically about this general that lives in the middle of a battle. She is not seen again, but then after this empire conquer everything, she is back and she has to reunite like her generals also to fight for her again in this war. It's just so cool. It's filled with necromancy, vampires, orcs, the pirate queen. Yeah, it's just so good. Even though it's mostly a character driven book, I love the hell out of this book. Like, I love it. I want to read it again. It's just so good. Please, give me another one of these. Then in number 9, I've talked a bunch about this book. This is There Is No Antimemetics Division. Whew, this is such a weird book, but it's my type of weird. This is a science fiction book, and it's basically about this agency that is dedicated to control the anti-memes. They are basically this kind of weird thing that once you just turn away from them, you forget they exist. So the story is just so disjointed and sometimes doesn't make any sense, but it's just because these agents are kind of losing their memory over and over and over again. It's just so good. It has like censored text and such. It's amazing. It reminded me a lot of the video game Control. I don't know why, but so much of it. Like I was reading, I was just like, okay. I was just picturing the fucking game. But this is so good. If you like weird sci-fi, I highly recommend this one, but it is very confusing. Like, it's confusing as hell. You will need just like all your brain power for this one. Then I have here 7 Deaths of an Empire by J.R. Matthews. I don't know why, but this book just struck all the great points for me. Like, I read an arc of it and I was so invested on it. The only thing that I could think about was getting home and just read this, because I was so invested. We have like a dual POV. We have the magician and the general. They are actually related, and the magician is escorting the body of the emperor who just died back to the capital where this general is, and he's basically trying to figure out where the succession is going and such. There's so much politics here and there that I love this. This is Roman inspired also, which you can tell just right away. I had no idea when I first started it, but then I was just like, okay, this is Roman inspired, like 100%. I love this one. And I cannot wait for the sequel. Like, I'm so invested in this story, even though it's like pretty low fantasy. Like, the magic system is not that overly explained. Like, at first it feels like it just happens. Then we have a few chapters that we dive a little bit on it, but I don't care. I love this, and I was so invested, and I want more. I need more. The ending of this book. Why? Why? Give me the next one, please. I just need it. I need it. I have here Pawn's Gambit by Rob J. Hayes. Yes, I know that I just read Spirits of Vengeance, but Pawn's Gambit is still my favorite of the 3. Like, this book is so good in so many ways. I kind of want to reread it as an audiobook because I'm very curious about it, but oh, man, I just loved it. It's basically about a competition between the gods, and each one of them chooses like a champion, and the champion that brings the most treasures is basically able to fight like the current god, like the current king of the gods. It's so good. But yeah, I was expecting like a more chill out kind of ride after, you know, Never Die. This is a very like just have fun type of book. But this, the ending is so emotional. I was just like, no way. There's such a huge betrayal here. Like, oh my god, what a treason. What a treason. I'm still mad about it. Like, I understand, but whoa. How dare she? But still, this was fantastic. I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Still my favorite Rob J. Hayes book. This one is so good. Like, I even have like the cover as like my background in my phone, so I love it. Then, oh my god, this book is so good. This is Hench by Natalie, not Nina. Natalie's Nina Wildshots. I don't know why I always say Nina. This is basically a sci-fi book about superheroes, but the thing is, we're going to follow the henchmen of the supervillains instead of like your usual superheroes. Is fantastic. I love this. You're going to follow like this hench woman, and she doesn't have any powers, but one day after having an encounter with a hero, she realizes that maybe heroes are the problem here, and the cost that they have is just amazing. She starts messing up with every single superhero in like so many quirky ways. I love it. This book is fantastic. I do really want to reread this one also. Like, it was such a good time. It was so much more deep than what I thought. Like, I thought that was just going to be like, have a good time type of book, but no. This is so good. This is amazing. I have here Dreams of the Dying by Nicholas Lizzo. Whew. I love this book. I read it at the beginning of the year and I still think about it. Like, I'm in love with this cover. I'm waiting for book 2. I'm so excited for book 2. I know it's probably not going to come out next year. Doesn't matter. This is fantastic. It's dark fantasy and you're basically going to follow Jasper Dalvarek, and he's actually come to this kind of empire island to help this great merchant who has fallen into this kind of coma and he hasn't woken up. Dream magic. Dream magic. There's also like a lot of criticism of capitalism in this book. Like, it's usually done while the characters are traveling. There's a lot of traveling in this book. If you don't like that, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of traveling in this book. And I'm not that into it, but I love it when it's used to just explain more of the world and things like that. I just love that. When it's done to just get more world building done. I love it. I could picture everything here. I love it in general. I thought that it was going to be like more of a continuous story, but it's pretty like self-focused. Like, by the end, I think that this story is just like over, and we're going to continue following Jasper in other adventures. But this one, great. The corpses, so creepy. But I loved it. This is number 4. Something is killing the children. I fell in love with this graphic novel this year. It's basically about a little town where a monster is basically killing children. Super straight to the point. But it's so good, man. I love the art. I love the story. I've read every single volume that's available. I'm dying to get my hands on volume 4 when it comes out in January. I just love it. There's nothing else that I can say about it. Like, it's pretty short, but still, I'm in love with it. I love Erica. I have the bandana that she wears. I cannot help it, but I just love it. It's the first time that I've actually had like a graphic novel my best of the year, but this was just great. This was just so great. So good. I love it. If you're looking for a horror type of graphic novel, you're going to love this. It's so gory also. Then in number 3, I'm going to put Jade Legacy by Fondolé. This is the final book in the Green Bow saga. And it was a roller coaster. Holy fuck. I don't have to say that I don't think it's the best one out of the series, but I think it's such a good conclusion. Like, it's so well done, so well crafted. Feels like a book on its own. This was great. This was great. I think this is one of the few fantasy series that I think everyone will enjoy. Like, I don't care if you have never read fantasy, if you are like an expert in fantasy, I think you will just enjoy this book so much. Like, they might not be your favorite books, but they are so good in general. Like, in general, these characters are amazing. Oh, you're basically going to follow the Cole family, and they belong to the Nopi clan, and they have been fighting over territory in this island with the Mountain clan. It's just that's the brunt of it all, but it's so much more than that. The world expands so vastly in everything. The world building in this one is fantastic. If you're a nerd like me and love world building, I think this one is so good. Character building here, incredible for someone who doesn't love like characters in general. It's more focused on the plot. Characters were fantastic, and the plot is great. And I just love this series, and it's amazing, and I highly recommend you check it out. Then in number 2, Bloodline, but we could include the whole Cradle series here, honestly. This series by Will White is just like my new favorite thing. I'm in love with it. I cannot stop reading them, basically. I started reading one every month, and I haven't stopped. I only have one book left to read, and I will read it in January, because this book, Bloodline, is now my current favorite of them all. My previous favorite was Blackflame, which is book 3. Really close with Uncrown. But this one, holy fuck. The battles, the emotion, the character work here, everything. The plot reached its point. Oof, this book. For some reason, this has, I believe, a lower rating than some of the other books. I don't understand. This one is just so good. There was a moment here where I felt so betrayed. Like, the main character, I was just like, oh my god, these pieces of shit. And I was so upset by it. Like, how dare they? How dare they? I love Lena. He's so cute. oh my god. Ethan is still my favorite character. Just, I cannot help it. He's so like funny in general. Yaren is fucking great. Mercy also. Orsak, they're all amazing. I'm just so happy that I started with this series. Like, it brings me so much joy. Every time that I'm reading one of these books, I'm just like genuinely happy. Check out the Cradle series. If you just enjoy fantasy in general, they're such a fun ride, so fun to read, so good. Amazing. So let's just talk about number 1. Wow, what a surprise, The Wall of Storms. I do have to say that I'm currently reading the Bell Throne. If I love it as much as this one, well, I'll include it next year. This book, dude, The Wall of Storms is just such a good book. This is the only book, well, no, I'm lying. I have reread 2 books this year that I've also read this year. I read this in January, and I immediately knew that it was going to be my favorite book of the year because, dude, this book is great. I cannot think of a book that made me feel more tension than this book. I was concerned in every single page because I have no idea what was going to happen with these characters. Like, literally no one is safe here. And I was in so much tension reading this that I couldn't stop because I needed to know. Like, I was just like so concerned all the time that I needed to know. And I've never felt that way with a book, like ever. The ending, I was crying and I was just like, why is this happening? I miss so many characters that were in here. Like, Kenlu is just so good. Man, he's such a talented writer. I love the world building in this series. I love the characters in this series. Everyone is just like so great in this series. Like, everyone talks about, oh my god, the first law is just filled with great characters. No shit. Everyone here just has like a hidden motive for everything except like 2 or 3 characters, and because they are so good, they just get killed off by other characters. And it's just so sad. This book is just excellent. Like, it's just excellent. I do acknowledge that some bits of it are a bit troublesome. Can acknowledge that it has some issues, but this book in general is just great. I've never felt like read a book that I'm just like, this book is so close to being perfect. For me at least. I know that a lot of people just don't enjoy like more slow-paced books, but dude, the intrigue in this book, the battles in this book, everything about this book is just great, and I cannot help but loving it. My favorite book of 2021. The Curse of Kings was my 2nd or 3rd favorite book of last year. So probably the Bell Throne is going to be my favorite book of next year. Probably. Also the 4th one is coming out too in 2022. So it's going to be a year. So yeah, those were basically my favorite books of 2021. What was your favorite book of 2021? Or your best books of 2021? Please, I'm dying to know, so I can just get them and read them. But basically, that's going to be all for today. So, as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!